At some point, most of us have stopped and asked ourselves a pretty uncomfortable question. How am I actually doing financially compared to everyone else? Not the highlight reel people post online, not what your coworker drives or where your neighbor just went on vacation. The real statistical average, where the typical American actually stands in 2026. And today, we are putting those numbers on the table. Because once you see them, one of two things is going to happen. You are either going to feel genuinely relieved about your own situation, or you are going to feel a real urgency to make some changes. Either way, consider this your financial reality check. Let us start with income. Here's the number that gets misrepresented constantly. Headlines will often throw out a mean average household income figure that sounds reasonably healthy. The problem is that mean averages get heavily distorted by a small group of very high earners pulling everything upward. It creates a picture that does not reflect what most people are actually living. The median is where the truth lives. According to the latest Census Bureau data, the median U.S. household income sits at $83,730. That is the household right in the exact middle of the income distribution. According to projections factoring in recent inflation adjustments, the 2026 median is trending toward $89,000 to $90,000, but the official census figure for 2024 remains $83,730. Drill down to individual workers, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts median weekly earnings at $1,214 for full-time workers as of the fourth quarter of 2024. That works out to about $63,000 per year. After taxes, Social Security, and Medicare, the actual take-home landing in most workers' bank accounts is somewhere around $3,500 to $4,000 per month, depending on the state. And here is the gut punch. 67% of Americans say they are living paycheck to paycheck right now, according to PNC Bank's 2025 Financial Wellness Report. That includes nearly half of Americans earning over $100,000 per year. High income does not guarantee financial stability when spending expands to absorb every dollar that comes in. The gap between what headlines report as average income and what most people actually experience is not a rounding error. It is a structural feature of how wealth is distributed in this country. Now we get to the part of the data that should genuinely concern all of us. The retirement savings picture in America is in serious trouble, and the numbers make that hard to ignore. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement savings for American households sits at $87,000. The person right in the middle of the distribution has set aside $87,000 to fund the rest of their life after they stop working. That is barely more than a single year of median household income, and it gets harder from there. According to the Federal Reserve's 2025 report on the economic well-being of U.S. households, 36% of non-retirees have zero retirement savings. Not a small amount, not a starter 401k, nothing at all. More than 1 in 3 American workers who have not yet retired have nothing set aside for when they do. Look at the numbers by age group, and the story gets clearer. For households between 55 and 64, the people within a decade of traditional retirement, the median retirement savings is $185,000. For those already between 65 and 74, the median is around $200,000. Apply the standard 4% withdrawal rule to $200,000, and you are generating $8,000 per year in retirement income. About $667 per month. That is the income produced by the median retirement savings of someone who has already reached retirement age. Americans say they believe they need $1.26 million to retire comfortably, according to Northwestern Mutual Research. The median household nearing retirement has $185,000. That gap does not close on its own. And research from the National Financial Educators Council adds another layer. Low financial literacy alone costs the average American more than $1,000 per year in bad decisions, fees, and missed opportunities. Compounded over a career, that is an enormous amount of wealth that disappears not from bad luck, but from a lack of education that most people were never given access to. A lot of Americans are counting on Social Security to fill the gap in their retirement savings. and Social Security checks do average around $1,900 per month for most retirees right now. For someone in a low-cost area with no mortgage and minimal expenses, that is survivable on a very basic level. But it is not a comfortable retirement, and it is certainly not a reliable foundation for the decades ahead. Here is the conversation nobody wants to have directly. If you still have 10, 15, or 20 or more years before you retire, the responsible planning assumption is that Social Security may look different by the time you get there. The fiscal math of the trust fund is not moving in a direction that inspires confidence in full promised benefits for younger workers. Plan for it as a potential supplement. Build your retirement security on your own terms, independently of a government program that may not deliver on its full promise. Now let us look at where the money goes once it actually lands in people's hands. The average U.S. household spends approximately $5,577 per month, or roughly $67,000 per year. To simply break even financially, a household needs to bring home at least that amount after taxes. Many single-income households are not there, which is exactly why the two-income household has gone from being a lifestyle option to being a financial requirement for most families. The breakdown tells its own story. Housing runs about $885 per month. Food averages $691. Transportation, which includes car payments, insurance, and fuel, runs around $913 per month. Those three categories alone add up to $3,489 before a single dollar goes toward healthcare, savings, or anything beyond the necessities. And nearly 19.3% of new car buyers are now paying over $1,000 per month for their vehicle, locked into loans averaging $42,388 at 7.2% APR stretched over nearly 70 months. 6 years of payments on something that loses value immediately and continuously. When monthly expenses consistently run ahead of monthly income, something has to cover the shortfall. For American households right now, that something is credit card debt, and the scale of it has reached a point that has never been seen before. Total U.S. credit card debt crossed $1.277 trillion by the end of 2025, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. That is an all-time record, a record that was not close to being approached before. Credit card balances have risen more than $507 billion since the first quarter of 2021, a 66% increase in less than 5 years. At the household level, the average credit card balance is $11,090, according to Wallet Hub data through the third quarter of 2025. The interest rate attached to that debt is running at an average of 20.97% on existing accounts, with new card offers averaging 23.72% according to LendingTree. A household carrying $11,000 at 21% is paying roughly $2,300 per year in pure interest before making any new purchases. And where is that debt coming from? According to Bankrate's 2026 credit card debt report, 41% of people with credit card debt say an emergency expense was the primary cause. Another 33% say it was day-to-day essentials like groceries, utilities, and childcare. Only 10% pointed to discretionary retail spending. Americans are financing their basic lives on high-interest revolving debt. The math here is non-negotiable. You cannot build wealth while paying 21% interest on a debt you are not paying down. Eliminate the high-interest debt first, then invest. Everything else is secondary to that sequence. On net worth, the median American household net worth is around $192,700. By age group, it breaks down as follows. Under 35 holds about $39,000. Ages 35 to 44 hold $135,600. Ages 45 to 54 hold $247,200. Ages 55 to 64 hold $364,500. And the 65 to 74 group has a median net worth of around $409,900. These are achievable numbers with disciplined behavior over time. And for perspective, 7% of Americans are millionaires. But 1 in 3 of those millionaires still reports feeling financially stretched. The amount in your account matters far less than the system you have built around managing it. Here is the single statistic in this entire video that should cut through everything else. According to the Federal Reserve's 2024 Economic Well-Being of U.S. Households report, published May 2025, 37% of Americans do not have enough saved to cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing, selling something, or using credit. More than 1 in 3 Americans cannot handle a $400 car repair from their savings right now. And the same Federal Reserve report found that only 48% of adults could cover a $2,000 unexpected expense using savings alone. More than half of American adults are completely exposed to moderate financial shocks, with no buffer at all. Research from Vanguard puts the real-world impact of this on paper. People with at least $2,000 in emergency savings reported 21% higher financial well-being compared to those with nothing. Those with 3 to 6 months of expenses covered saw an additional 13% improvement. People without any savings cushion spend roughly 7 hours per week worrying about money. Those with even a modest buffer spend half that time. And people with no emergency fund are 4 times more likely to be distracted at work by financial stress. This is not just a savings problem. It is a productivity and mental health problem that compounds every single week. The path out of this is not complicated. Automate a transfer from your paycheck into a separate savings account on payday before anything else gets spent. Even $25 or $50 per paycheck starts to build the buffer. Increase the amount as income grows. Take willpower out of the equation entirely. Now look at what is happening at the broader economic level. Consumer spending accounts for nearly 70% of U.S. GDP, and it is showing real cracks. Nearly half of Americans are concerned that tariffs will make their credit card debt worse. More than 1 in 3 expects their balances to increase this year. Last October's Amazon Prime Day saw average order values drop 15% to $45. 44% of orders were under $20. Only 23% of shoppers were using it as a holiday shopping kickoff versus 45% the prior year. People are buying what they need when it is discounted. Nothing more. The consumer spending slowdown extends beyond Amazon and retail. Home Depot and Lowe's both reported disappointing recent sales, with executives telling investors directly that homeowners are pulling back sharply on large remodeling projects. Online searches for kitchen and bathroom renovations are trending down. Demand for big-ticket home improvement work is softening in a way the industry had not anticipated. This is consistent financial behavior under economic pressure. When job security feels uncertain and every paycheck is already allocated before it arrives, large discretionary expenses get postponed indefinitely. The kitchen remodel becomes next year's problem, the bathroom renovation stays on the wish list, and newly announced tariffs of 25% on upholstered furniture, kitchen cabinets, and bathroom vanities are going to push those project costs even higher before conditions improve. Some homeowners will borrow against home equity to fund these projects anyway. And while home equity loans have legitimate uses, financing renovations on borrowed money when you do not have an emergency fund is a financial risk that tends to compound in the wrong direction. The pullback in renovation spending, the slowdown in consumer purchases, and the all-time record in credit card debt all point to the same conclusion. American household finances are stretched to their limit right now. So what does any of this mean for you and what you do next? Here is the most important investing principle we can leave you with. If you had been fully invested in the U.S. stock market over the past 30 years but missed just the 10 best single trading days, your total returns would have been cut in half. Miss the best 30 days and returns collapse by 83%. The best days frequently follow the worst ones. Investors who sold during the 2020 pandemic crash missed some of the largest single-day gains in market history that came just weeks later. The conclusion is not complicated. Stay invested, stay consistent, let time compound the results. The priority order that builds real financial security. First, eliminate all credit card debt costing you 21% or more. Second, build an emergency fund to at least $2,000 and then push toward 3 to 6 months of expenses. Third, invest consistently at 10 to 15% of income. Fourth, resist letting spending expand to consume every raise you receive. Total U.S. credit card debt is at an all-time record of $1.277 trillion. The average household carries $11,000 in balances at 21% interest. 37% of Americans cannot cover a $400 emergency. 36% of non-retirees have zero retirement savings. If you are watching this and thinking about your own financial situation, you are already doing something most people never do: paying attention. Use these numbers, let them push you forward. Beating the average American financially in 2026 is more achievable than it sounds. The data in this video proves exactly why. This is Atlas News Report. Stay sharp and stay subscribed.